Would you ever have thought that something as kind of odd sounding, at least odd sounding to me, such as internal family systems, might be a game changer for ME/CFS or long COVID recovery? Today's guest found it to be a lifesaver in her 3-year fight against long COVID. And in today's episode, we're going to get insights from Lucy Feighery from Dublin, Ireland. There is a new recovery interview every week here on the channel so that we as a community can learn about what's worked and what hasn't worked for different people. Lucy overcame long COVID and chronic pain by gaining deeper understandings of things through this IFS work. And she's here to offer valuable tips and hard-earned wisdom that might just be what you need for your own health journey. So let's dive in and welcome Lucy. Hey Lucy, it's so exciting to have you here. Thank you for doing this today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's really nice to actually share my story. There was many times where I was unwell watching all of the recovery stories that you share, and they were very helpful to me. So it's nice to be on the other side and sharing what's helped me.
Yes, thank you so much for doing this. I know this can be a bit of a nerve-wracking experience, so we all very much appreciate you. So let's dive right in. Take us back. How did this start for you?
So before I became unwell, I was living and working in the UK. I was 28, and generally I was leading a busy life, enjoying going to the gym, enjoying socializing, and enjoying my job. I was working as an assistant psychologist, helping people with anxiety and depression. And it was 2020 when I got COVID, early 2020. And that's when it sort of all started. But because I had done a degree and a master's in psychology, I had read quite a lot around the area of health psychology and the connections between the mind and the body. So I was already aware of how much mindset can impact our health, and how, I suppose, being optimistic and feeling in control of your situation is linked to positive health outcomes. So some things I already knew quite a lot about before I became unwell, which was helpful to some extent in terms of staying in a good mindset. But of course, it did still get very difficult at times. And I think the uncertainty related to being unwell causes a lot of challenges, and not knowing what's causing symptoms and what exactly to do, to what exactly is going to help to get you out of it as well.
That's really incredible that you had that insight going into this about how, the kind of the mind-body connection and how that impacts things. It takes most of us a long time to get to that place of understanding. I imagine it was still stressful though, and scary.
Yeah, and actually, it's interesting because I think having some insight and knowledge in some ways was empowering, but in other ways wasn't, because I was thinking, I've already been meditating for 10 years. I've already been using CBT in my previous work, where you're challenging thoughts and you're aware of your mindset in how you manage situations. So in some ways, it was really good to have all of that information. But then when I would find information online or join online courses and they were talking about breathing techniques or meditation or things that I'd already come across, I sort of felt a little bit disempowered, thinking, oh no, I thought there'd be more things I wasn't aware of yet. So some of that was really helpful. And but also I think for anyone, sometimes you can know the tools and techniques and they're not working. So that's a challenging part, the uncertainty and trying to find something that does help.
So it doesn't sound like you found what you needed right away, obviously, to work your way through this. So how did your condition progress? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, so initially I got COVID early 2020 and it was a mild infection. I had fatigue, I had trouble breathing, I had kind of pain in my chest when I was breathing, heart palpitations. If I tried to do activity that I normally did, I would struggle a lot afterwards with fatigue and headaches, and which then became migraines. So, but in 2020, in general, I took a little bit of time off work, but I was still able to work and I was still able to socialize. So my life was pretty normal and okay, even though I had this going on in the background. So it was 2021 when things got a lot worse. So my symptoms had improved a lot throughout 2020, and then I got back into normal exercise again, normal routine. I'd actually moved jobs at the end of 2020, moved to a new city, and yeah, the symptoms just started coming back. And because I was in a new job, it was hard to take time off work because I was aware that I was new in the role. And so I was continuing to try to push myself through symptoms, and but eventually came to the point that I had to stop working and take time off. And then I was struggling with, getting my shopping done and cooking for myself. Even just basic things started to become more and more challenging. And at the time, I had really bad orthostatic intolerance, so I couldn't sit up for very long. So I was maybe like 10 or 15 minutes I could sit up or stand for. Yeah, it was things I suppose were getting worse, but I was still feeling under pressure to get back to work. And I was in a mindset of, oh, I just need to fix this quickly and then get back to my normal life. I was doing some exams at the time, and I remember trying to study for exams when I couldn't even sit up. So looking back now, I think I really was still feeling under a lot of pressure to just carry on and to get some kind of a quick fix for the situation. And then a few months into 2021, I decided to go back to Dublin for a little while so that my parents could help me a bit more. And I thought I'd just go back for a couple of months and that then I'd be better and I'd go back to work. But actually, unfortunately, I just got worse and worse when I got back to Dublin. So then I was rarely leaving my bed. I could walk to the bathroom. I could sit up to eat, but I couldn't go downstairs. I couldn't wash my own hair. I think once or twice I tried walking around the garden, and I ended up with a migraine and really awful symptoms afterwards for a couple of weeks. And yeah, there was another time I downloaded Duolingo and I thought, oh, I'll practice a little bit of Spanish. But after just 2 minutes, I'd given myself a migraine. So I think both cognitively and physically, I was very limited. So I couldn't speak on the phone to people for more than 10 minutes. I couldn't really have a conversation for more than 10 minutes. And it was very difficult to connect with others because I suppose you feel like people don't understand you when you're in that situation. It's very hard for others to understand what you're going through and to relate to the challenge of being in bed all day, every day for months on end. So I think, yeah, that was definitely a really tough time and very difficult, especially not knowing what was going to help or how long I would be in that state for.
You painted a really good picture of what those initial stages are like when you first come down with these conditions, because a lot of us, I think, go through this where we're working, we're trying to keep it up, but it's a nightmare. Like getting through work every day is so ridiculously hard. So then you finally give in, or you're forced to, and you take some time off, and at least for me, think, okay, this will be somewhat of a relief. Like finally, I don't have to try and pull myself into work every day. But for me, I think initially I had a 3 week leave that I took, and I was going to fix myself in 3 weeks. So you just picture the situation that we're all in. I imagine many people go through this where, like, okay, now I have to fix myself fast because life is waiting, and there's only so much time I can take to just be sick. Responsibilities are waiting, and then the pressure just builds and builds, which then we get worse and worse and worse, understandably. Like, how are we supposed to get better in that situation? I think very few people go into it thinking like, okay, I'm going to really solidly give myself, however many months or a year to get through this and just relax and just breathe and figure this out. But it's just pressure the whole time and stress and isolation. It's a crazy thing to go through.
Yeah, it's very difficult. And I think that stage of becoming unwell, you're so used to your life being normal and busy and carrying on. And if you get unwell, you get better again quite quickly. So I think it's a different experience when things are lingering on and you're starting to worry about going back. I was on a fixed term contract. I wasn't on a permanent contract. So I was aware that, you know, once the contract was over, my job would be gone, and I really wanted to get back to work before the contract ended. But um, I think also all of that pressure doesn't help. At the time, it's just hard to avoid feeling under that pressure, but it's feeding into the feeling of pressure and stress and not being okay with the situation you're in, which is so understandable, once you're in that situation to feel that pressure.
Yeah, when I first became unwell, some of the information out there was saying that the longer that you were sick, the less of a chance you had to get better. So then I'm like, with each passing month, with each passing year, I'm more and more doomed. It really is this perfect storm, and especially since we understand that with so many of us, it sounds like you as well, that whole mind body piece is so important. So, yeah, I'm so glad that we are having so many more conversations about this. So hopefully people who first become unwell or start not feeling well can start to shine a light on this whole process and maybe cut themselves some slack and have some self-compassion and take a little bit of the pressure off, and like, this is going to take some time and it's okay. And
Yeah.
everything will be okay. It will. Just do what you got to do.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So when you got into this really bad state, how or what did you do from there?
So I was trying many different things. Luckily, when I came back to Dublin, I saw a specialist who specializes in fatigue, and he's very good in the sense that he understands and believes in the condition. And yeah, I suppose it's just nice to have someone on your side who can understand what you're going through. But I tried many different things. So he prescribed a couple of different medications, which I tried, and they helped to some extent. I also tried doing microbiome testing, so getting gut tests, and that found that I had SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So I tried by treating that with supplements and antimicrobials, and also a parasite showed up, but it was a parasite that once I did a bit of research on, it turned out a lot of healthy people have this parasite and that there's not much known about it. So I was sort of digging deeper into different areas of researching different things. When I was well enough to research, I would really get into a hole of finding information and going into more detail. And I tried different devices for nervous system regulation. So there's some people use a TENS machine to try and you put this thing on your ear, and it's supposed to help with stimulating your vagus nerve, but that didn't work well for me, or I had kind of bad physical reactions to that. And I tried other kind of online programs as well. So brain retraining, I tried various programs that help teach people about pacing and mindset. And yeah, I read a lot about lots of different things. I listened to recovery stories. I suppose I was trying to just uncover every angle that I could to figure out something that would help. So I was, regularly doing breathing exercises, meditation, eating really healthily, pacing as well as I could, but I found that I wasn't making progress with that, or I was, at one point someone had advised doing less to find a baseline, which I did, but then actually I got worse once I did less, so that didn't help. So yeah, I tried quite a lot of things. One thing that did help, I tried low dose naltrexone, which did give me a little bit more energy. So by the end of 2021, I started taking that. And I remember I had bought lots of Christmas presents online for my family, and I was thinking, I'm not going to be able to wrap them because I can't sit up and I won't have the energy. And I just started taking this medication, and it helped. I was sort of amazed that I was able to sit up, and I was amazed that I was able to go downstairs for Christmas that year. And even just sit at the table for 10 minutes so that medication did help give me a certain level of energy that I didn't have before, where I could walk around the house a bit more and get out of bed more. I was still had many symptoms every day and felt very unwell, but it gave me a little bit more than I had before.
I wonder if, because a lot of people talk about this specific medication, and I can't even recall the name of it, but when I was going through this, my doctor prescribed something. I don't think it was the same thing. And it did give me a little bit more energy, but I remember feeling that it always felt like artificial energy, or like it wasn't actually fixing anything that was going on, almost like a glorified caffeine or something. I don't know if that's the experience with that one. Because I know a lot of people have questions about this specific prescriptive
Yeah,
treatment.
so that medication, it's hard to know. I think one of the things that that helps with is inflammation, lowering inflammation. So if inflammation is quite high in your body, then potentially that one could help, but it also has quite a lot of side effects. So for some people, they don't get on well with it because of the side effects. Another medication I had been prescribed was amitriptyline for migraines, and that actually helped me with the orthostatic intolerance. So it didn't help me with fatigue. It didn't really help me with most of my symptoms, but it helped me sit up more and feel less dizzy. So, but I don't think I've never heard anyone else say that about that medication. So it's interesting how these things work differently for different people. And I think with that one, I did feel more like what you described, more of an artificial help than it actually fixing the problem. It felt more like kind of a cover that kind of helped a bit at the time.
So it sounds like you're finding some little things here and there that were helping little bits, but nothing that was really a game changer. But eventually, obviously, you did come across things that were helping. So, what did that look like?
Yeah, so in November 2022, I came across a book called The Mind Body Prescription by Dr. John Sarno. You've probably heard other people talking about this book. I think I've heard
I
people
can't
on this
stop.
channel.
Sorry, I almost never cut people off. I am so sorry, but I can't even. I hear the name of that book now, and I wish I had the time and the bandwidth for someone to go through all of these interviews and just splice out every time someone says that things turned around for them when they got that book. So if you're
Yeah.
watching and you haven't read it yet, I think and there's audiobooks too if you have trouble reading. But the Dr. John Sarno books have been a key turning point for so many people. So sorry, please continue, Lucy.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so basically I read that book and I had read some other books as well before where I started to mix some of the ideas from different books. So for anyone who hasn't read this book, The Mind Body Prescription by Dr. John Sarno, it talks about how chronic pain and other chronic symptoms could be related to repressed emotions or other psychological processes. So he is saying that the symptoms are real and they're physical, and there may be physiological processes going on for those symptoms to occur. I mean, especially with if you think about dizziness or a headache or low blood pressure or whatever, something has to happen in your body for that to happen. But that originally the symptom may have been triggered in the brain, which affected the nervous system to cause these symptoms. So I had come across the idea before that emotions could cause symptoms, but I had never come across the idea that repressed emotions, so emotions that you might be completely unaware of, could cause symptoms. So when I came across this book, it really was quite interesting in terms of opening a new door for me to explore. And I used internal family system approaches. So this is a type of therapy that talks about different parts of us, like a perfectionist part, a people pleaser part, an anxious part, or an achiever part. There's a few books on internal family systems. So I hadn't done this particular therapy before. I had just read a couple of books about it. And it helps you to reflect on different parts of you that might be experiencing different emotions or having different experiences. And so, using this approach alongside what I'd learned about the mind body approach from Dr. John Sarno's book, I started reflecting every time I had my symptoms were worse before I did any activity, but after I did any activity, I started reflecting to see if there was an emotion behind my symptoms. So I realized that actually there were some emotions I hadn't been aware of before, and that doing this and changing my mindset about what the nature of my symptoms were was really, really helpful. So building up a more positive association with activity, with symptoms as well, because I think if we've been unwell for a really long time, naturally you, with the uncertainty that comes with the symptoms, not knowing why they're there, how long they'll be there for, we build up a negative association with them. And so it feels unsafe rather than safe to have those symptoms. So I started working on trying to feel safer when I had symptoms, to do more activity and feel safe, attend to any emotions that I might have about that, and also reflect on how I was responding afterwards, because after I did activity, I still had symptoms. My symptoms did increase. So it was a process of changing the way that I looked at things. And even before I started all of this mind body approach, I had generally been quite optimistic, and I had generally been trying to keep a positive mindset, but I think it was quite different coming across this approach and fully understanding it, how it applied to me, and believing that it applied to me. Because I think if someone had told me about this approach in a different way, a year before, I may not have really resonated with it as much and been able to apply it to myself. Even if I had read a different one of Dr. John Sarno's books, it may have landed differently with me. But I think learning what I learned at that time, and yeah, really helped. So over a number of months, I gradually started doing more and implementing different ideas, tools, and approaches to reflect on any emotions that might be under the surface, and also to, I suppose, instill a belief that actually I am healthy and I am okay, and that any symptoms are a sign of that I need to become aware of something, rather than something's going terribly wrong and leading to uncertainty of how long it will last for, and everything else that goes through your mind when you're concerned about symptoms.
Yeah, we hear a lot about mindset, and I worked so hard on mine, in my first few years that I was unwell, and I thought I was doing a good job because I kept trying as much as I could to be optimistic and recovery focused and keeping a gratitude journal and focusing on the good. But that piece of your mindset towards symptoms is such a game changer for so many people. And I think it's a tough one to learn.
Yeah,
So for you, like in the moment, what does that look like? Because I think it's an easy thing to say, like,
yeah,
I had to have a positive attitude towards symptoms, which is
yeah.
okay. So what, like in the moment for you, how did you do that?
Yeah, so for instance, at the time I was able to walk, before I came across this book and started applying this approach, I was able to walk around the house, and I was able to go for maybe a 10 or a 15-minute walk. And then I started to do more and challenge what I was already doing. So I started going for very short runs, so like a 500-meter jog, really slowly. And afterwards, I would have a lot more symptoms and I would feel pretty awful. So in those moments, rather than saying, oh no, I've done too much, how long is this going to last for? I think I've begun this crash, and I'm things are going downhill from here, and I shouldn't have done what I did. Rather than allowing my brain to go down that direction in terms of the thinking, I was saying, no, I'm okay. This is a process of my body adapting to a new way of being active. And that I would also try to figure out, is there any emotion? Am I experiencing fear, and can I be with that fear? Am I experiencing a sense of sadness or frustration or anger, and can I be with that? And just constantly reassuring myself that I am safe, I'm okay. This isn't dangerous to experience these symptoms. And I think that's easier said than done, um, for someone who's had this for a very long time. And it also depends on how much you believe in the approach and how much you can really identify with your symptoms as mind body symptoms. So I've been creating YouTube videos since I started feeling better. And I think what I've noticed is, for some people, it takes a while for them to really understand how this applies to them. And until that point, it can be harder to implement that set of beliefs and those ideas. And also other traits can come in, like perfectionism. So for instance, if you feel really perfectionistic about that recovery process, and you have symptoms after doing activity, and then you see that as a failure, then that's going to be much harder than if you see it as a natural part of the process. Um, so I think there's some level of tolerance to being out of your comfort zone during that time, and knowing that it's okay not to feel 100% comfortable and safe in that situation, that it's normal to feel concerned, anxious because of your past experience, you know. um and I think there's different right steps for different people. This is my experience. I was able to start going for short runs, but for other people maybe that's too far out of their comfort zone to for not to trigger something in their nervous system. So there's a different course that's right for different people. Um, and I think it's getting that balance of going out of your comfort zone, but not going so far out of your comfort zone that it triggers so much fear, whether you're aware of that fear or not. Because I think that's another element for me anyway that was really important, was realizing that for many, many years, I have not paid attention to my emotions. Even though I thought I thought I was very emotionally aware, I don't think I was actually. And even now, I still notice that's something I need to work on. But it's a challenging process. I think when these things are explained as if it's a simple process of do X, Y, and Z, and then you'll get this result, it doesn't account for actually how challenging it can be and how many ups and downs there can be during the process. It's not necessarily straightforward, and it's about how you manage the challenges and the setbacks.
Yeah, and that piece about not expecting perfection from yourself too, I think is important, because then you can get into that space of like, oh, I need to always believe in the process. I need to always be at peace with things or I'm never going to get better. But everyone I've talked to who recovered had moments of doubt and stress and, lacking self-compassion. And I think it's just working to minimize that and just slowly build up your ability to have this mindset towards everything. But nobody's in that space all the time, so it's okay. And that extra pressure we put on ourselves just makes it worse. So expecting perfection in any of this or expecting a straight line is, yeah, don't expect
Yeah,
that.
for sure.
It's okay.
Yeah.
That's not what it looks like for you, because it doesn't look like that for anybody who ever recovered, ever, as far as I know.
Yeah.
So was this sort of the main piece for you to your recovery? Was this what got you to where you are now?
Yeah, so really that was the main piece. Understanding how to become aware of emotions that I was previously less aware of, and to begin trusting that actually I am healthy and well and my body is okay, even though I have the symptoms. The symptoms were still very real, and anyone who's experiencing this, symptoms are debilitating, they're real, they're horrible, they're awful. Um, but it was learning how to build a for me, build a more positive association with both activity and symptoms.
Something that's really been interesting for me since I recovered is all of this information. Virtually everything I've learned still serves me now. And even this approach to symptoms. So, like if I have a really busy week and I feel really tired, that's a natural and normal reaction to a busy week. But it even helps me in those moments now. So I listen to them and I think, okay, my body's telling me to rest, but it makes me more at peace with the situation, because I think nothing's physically wrong right now. I'm not broken, because I used to feel like, oh, my body's in such bad shape right now. I pushed it so hard this week now and I can, I'm just wrecked. And it feels like you've done damage to yourself, but it's just such a peaceful, reassuring understanding to have going forward in life, that your symptoms is your body's way of talking to you and keeping you alive and helping you to thrive. So I can just be at peace with it. Like, okay, I need to rest. It's okay. I haven't broken myself. I just listen to what it's saying and move on. It's a great silver lining, one of the thousands, I think, that we come through this with such a better understanding of how our body works. Like even I do these ice baths and I get in the water and I start feeling pain in my hands and my feet. And I'm like, okay, this is just my brain. It's doing a threat assessment. It's telling me that my hands and feet are getting too cold. At some point, physical damage does happen. I'm not saying that it's all just symptoms, but anyways, I'm rambling now, but it's just very helpful information, I think, going through life to have.
Yeah. And actually I had lots of food intolerances before I got long COVID. So for about 10 years before I got long COVID and chronic fatigue syndrome, I had food intolerances. And I also had chronic pain from the age of 12. Get injuries that wouldn't go away and wouldn't heal. And actually, using this mind body approach has really helped with those things as well. Now I can eat whatever I want. And some injuries that I had that were lingering even before I was unwell and during the time I was unwell now don't impact me. So I think there's something to be said for not worrying about how fragile we might be. And we naturally learn that if we've got something wrong with our body to treat ourselves as though we're fragile or as though we might damage ourselves by doing too much or by, exercising a lot. But actually, whilst I know sometimes those things can impact how we feel, our bodies are really strong and can go through a lot. And I think if we can learn what's underlying the symptoms, knowing that actually it's not food or it's not activity, at least in my case anyway, was really helpful for me.
Yeah, and we are mentally strong too. So coming through this knowing that stress is okay, you're going to feel stress for the rest of your life because I used to stress about stress once I got better and I think, "Oh my goodness, I'm overdoing it. I have too much on the go. This is exactly the thing that makes people sick." And I used to every time I felt stress think that, "Oh no, this is horrible." And of course we should work to minimize it. And stress too much is not good, but we can handle stress too. Like we are tough. We are mentally strong, we are physically strong, and we are resilient.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So speaking of which, what does life look like for you now that you've recovered?
Yeah, so I'm able to do so much that I wasn't able to do before. So I'm able to go for long hikes, which I really love hiking, being in nature. I train with a triathlon club, so I'm swimming and running during the week. As I mentioned before, I've started a YouTube channel a while ago, and so I share things that have helped me more specifically about a mind body approach. And I offer coaching as well. Yeah, it's just to try and give people a chance to have some support through the challenging parts that are inevitable in terms of the process of getting better and getting through chronic fatigue syndrome and long COVID and chronic pain. It's a really big challenge, and it was definitely for me the worst time of my life and the biggest challenge I've ever gone through. And I think being able to just offer some type of support or some type of information that might help people is it's nice to be able to pass that on, given that so many people suffer for so long with these conditions.
Yeah, it's so incredible to see the ripple effect that's happening in the world right now of people who are not only recovering, but then are paying that forward, sharing their insights. Some people even becoming coaches and doing things to help other people. So it's an amazing time. It's horrible that so many people have to go through this, but we've never had more support and more information and more help than we do now. So grateful for you. I'm so glad you recovered. For people watching, linked in the video description will be everything you need to find her amazing YouTube channel. If you want to get in touch about coaching, please take a look. All of that is there. I'm so grateful to have met you, Lucy, and that you are here where you are and are recovered and doing so well. And I just really appreciate you, everything that you put out there, and for you taking the time to speak with me and my channel today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Raelan, and thank you for all of the work that you do. I think it's amazing how many videos and recovery stories that you share, and it was really important for me to be able to see all of your videos whilst I was unwell. So yeah, thanks for everything you do, and thanks for taking the time.
It is the joy of my life to do it. I think we have about 150 interviews up already. When I recovered, I'd only heard of one person, and that was towards the end of my recovery. So it's just, yeah, it's incredible. And there's so many more people out there. There's people, yeah, I could do this full time. I wish I could. Yeah. To those of you watching, thank you, thank you, thank you. I so love seeing all your comments, even though I can't always respond to them. Doesn't matter. It's not about me. It's about everyone else who's watching these videos and is reading what you write and appreciates the insights that you share. So looking forward to hearing your feedback. And if you're looking for more long COVID recovery stories like Lucy's to gain more insights, I'll link a playlist here to a long COVID recovery playlist. So thank you again, Lucy. Thank you to those of you watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got something out of it, and I hope to see you in one of these, wherever they are, next ones.